Hey guys, welcome back to the Loud Quiet. Looks a little different today,
Yeah.
and we'll get into why that is. If you saw my post on Tuesday about your GPS recalculating suddenly and just having to adapt to that, that's what we wanted to talk about this week's episode. Just when you get thrown some curveballs and I made the statement to Rick the other day that I feel like we've kind of lost our way and we've kind of lost ourselves a little bit the past few weeks. Wanted to come and chat with y'all and be vulnerable and just talk about what's going on, and maybe y'all have some tips on how to handle some of the things that we're dealing with.
Yeah, I think something you said is pretty important there, Clancy. You said we've lost our way, and then you said lost ourselves a bit. And I think that was when you said that to me. That's when I think it became crystal clear to me that this is different than the usual sort of schedule chaos. Everybody's busy, right? You know, what's the thing that everybody, oh, I'm so busy. And that's not what this is right now. This is where it feels completely out of sync. And that point of almost who is me? Who is you? Who is we? Is where a lot of these emotions are stemming from right now.
Well, and what is, you always say, oh, but you're only as busy as you make yourself. Well, this time some of this was not our making. So
I do say
uh,
that, don't I?
I
Because it's
was
all
not,
about prioritization,
I
right?
know, but I was not choosing to prioritize. I was forced to prioritize some things that
Right.
we weren't expecting. And so that did take away from the things that I was ready to jump back into. We had gotten back from Germany. If you watched our last episode, great trip. Just came off with such a high. We knew that we had two moves coming up. We needed to move Tanner into the townhome from his apartment. We needed to move Rick out of his office space to create what you kind of see here. It's in progress. Our studio at home. We knew we had a wedding, but we knew all of those things.
Right.
But then
And we'd slotted it
something,
in pretty darn
yes,
perfectly. Like, I
yeah.
think that's some of the discovery. We've had discussions around margin and those sorts of things before. We didn't allow for a lot of margin. We'd said things like, as soon as we get back from Germany, and then it was, oh, okay, as soon as we, and it's because we had slotted things almost to the day, right? I came to the realization, oh my gosh, I have to move out of my office on Monday, Memorial Day, because I literally was not going to have another day to move out of that office. And that absence of margin, I think, is what tipped it into the schedule chaos. And honestly, some of the categories that we're talking about here are some of the most disruptive categories that are out there that I think are going beyond just losing my sense of schedule and losing my way into losing my sense of self.
It was a tight schedule, but we knew that we had a week post Germany. We had gotten back into our routine. We did our podcast. We were, working as much as we could. We had some other things going on, but nothing that
They
wasn't
were all good. I think
planned.
that's the
Yeah.
thing is
Yeah.
is a lot of this is these were all good things until the thing that wasn't good. And that is
Well,
kind of
yeah.
that's what tore it all apart.
And that's, so Memorial Day, and then we knew, okay, we still have a few days to get some things done before moving, wedding. Well, then we got a phone call about your Nana.
Yeah, Rachel called me, and it was one of those. And folks, if you want to hear more about it, I've talked about it a little bit on Facebook personally, and then others. But basically, we were given the call that hospice had said it's the time. And y'all, again, we'll say it. Hospice nurses know what a great service hospice nurses offer families. And so when they know, they know. And it was one of those that I was even waffling on whether to get on a bus and go to Austin. And there was something that kind of almost in a lighthearted way I heard on the radio on the way home. I was like, okay, boom. I'm going to go do it. And so I got on a bus and rode to Austin. And it was one of those sorts of things that I packed
Wait,
enough.
specify. Wait, you got on Von Lane. Let's not like you didn't get on a Greyhound. It's
Hey,
not like
I would
you.
have ridden a Greyhound. I am not bougie when it comes to it. However, yes, Von Lane is a spectacular experience, and it's a luxury bus experience, and it was faster. And when you compare it to a walk-up fare of getting on an airline, it was a lot easier. And I didn't have time to make it to the airport. This was show up and bus left 3 minutes after I got on bus. So it was one of those, it wasn't thought out. It was exactly that. This was almost the beginning of losing that sense of self because it was just, I'm going to go be there with family. I'm going to go be there with Nana, and I don't regret any of it. None of this is about regret. It is about, but at that moment, all the other stuff got put to the side. And even probably with some guilt if I think about it, you were put to the side. Tegan was put to the side. The move was put to the side. It was, I'm going to go down to Austin because these are likely the last 2 days that we will have Nana here on Earth.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you decided to go. But yes, that day Tanner had changed his flight from Vegas to come in earlier. So Tegan and I went to pick him up. So I'm driving down to Love Field at, god awful traffic time. And you're on Von Lane texting me all these questions like, hey, what do you think about this? And these desks when we were trying, I was like, I'm trying to drive the tollway and
Yeah.
Mockingbird and get across. I finally told Tanner, tell your dad I'm in horrible traffic. Stop texting me. So,
Okay, I love that you're bringing that up because the flip is actually kind of occurring now that I'm down here in Austin, and we'll talk about it. Yeah, folks, you see it. We're not even able to record together because we've lost such a sense of self. The loud quiet is all about Clancy and me recording together, and we're not even doing that today. At that moment, you know what my thought process was? I had these 3 hours to prepare for the office move. 3 hours that I pretty much couldn't do anything else. I couldn't care for Nana. I couldn't do anything with any other function around house or kid or anything like that. And so I was doing that, but I wasn't thinking about you. It was just, this is the one moment that I can look for furniture because we need to have furniture because we're moving into an office when we thought we'd have time to plan those activities in a calmer way.
so yeah, so you did a very quick I mean, it was, you stayed
One night,
one
I was
night,
there
one
less
night,
than
that's right,
48
you came
hours.
out.
Yeah.
I picked you up the next night late, and then, after you got home, we found out that Nana had passed. And this is, every death is not good. She was 100, so we were all at peace with, she lived such an awesome life. And Tegan brought up the point that she said, why are we always on buses when we find out that people have passed away? Because, and I don't mean to laugh, but sometimes you just have to find the levity in situations, because this time last year is when Rick's mom passed away, and we had literally just put Tegan on the shuttle back to University of Arizona in Tucson from Phoenix
From Tanner's
during Tanner's
graduation.
graduation.
Right.
And so we made the decision not to tell her while she was on the shuttle
On the
and
bus.
wait till she, I mean, it really just,
My
the juxtapositions of these
maybe
passings
maybe I
are
should make
really,
sure that we're kind of worried about somebody's tenure on this world that nobody gets on a bus
yeah,
because
nobody
that
get
seems
on
to be a
a bus.
bad luck sort of thing.
And I know they would be laughing with us, so it's
Yeah,
not
yeah. There's no
anything
disrespect
offensive.
there
It's
at
just
all, and they're fine with
no,
that.
no.
I think though that like that was that, and then the fact that we were planning her service and all of those things. Not not only was it just the schedule component that helped me feel like I've lost my sense of self, ultimately all of this just kind of drained. Like I know that I lost all of my life force trying to get through all this to where I was having trouble talking. I was having trouble forming sentences because there just simply wasn't that level of energy. It was, I'm not going to use the word odd. Everybody's been through, and I don't even, this wasn't even stressful in that sense. It was just exhausting.
You were checked out, and I don't fault you for that. It's just, you know, of course, Tanner, being a 22-year-old male, had not packed a single thing in his apartment. So, yeah. So I go over to start packing the kitchen, and I was like, dude, you haven't done, anything. It's like, well, mom, I knew that you would be so much more efficient,
Oh,
using the
jeez.
whole, yeah, I know. So I got half of the kitchen done before, in like 25 minutes. It took him 2 days to get all of his clothes put into IKEA bags. But during that time, you're trying to help pack. We're trying to let people in and out of the townhome to do a few things. You're also trying to plan dates that work for everyone to have the service. And so it was just very much, you had to compartmentalize everything, and there was no room for anything else. It was this, I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with this, and I can't, nothing else. Our anniversary was during that week, and it.
Now that does make me sound like the bit of the demon there. I think it was
No, no,
both
no.
of
What I
us.
was about to say is, we're not huge. Oh my gosh, it's our anniversary. Everyone stop down and, worship us for being married for 25 years. That's not us. We've never been that way.
I think we should.
But it was interesting that all of this was going on, and people were like, "Oh, what are y'all doing for your anniversary?" I was like, packing one child, trying to plan a funeral. I mean, let me give you the list. We
Yeah.
did squeeze in a drink with our child in tow, but
And I don't
yeah,
mind,
it
yeah,
just,
celebrating the anniversary with the kid. That's fine. It's a
yeah.
place we enjoy. It was certainly not what most. Yeah, what did we joke? It's the 25th. It's the silver anniversary. I think your mom told us that the gift is wood or something along those lines, and we said no. For us, it's cardboard.
Yeah, cardboard boxes. But we did. We went to dinner that night with Tanner, and I was like, you know what though? This is just par for the course for us. We don't put so much stock on the dates of certain things.
Can I want to ask you something based off of something you just said, and it was and when I was saying, hey, look, I wasn't the demon on the 25th anniversary, and no, because we acknowledged each other. It was the situation,
I
not
did
any.
get you a gift. Tell her I did get you a gift.
Even though we said no gifts. And
I
yes, I
know.
was the recipient of a very special anniversary gift of Triscuits and Easy Cheese.
Did that make you happy?
It did make me
Yeah,
happy. So
that's all that
now,
matters.
and some would say that Triscuits are cardboard. I love them, so I guess you fit though within that Triscuit cardboard theme. No, you talked about me, but I think it was also there was individual aspects of this, you as well, compartmentalizing this. Did you feel like there were elements of you being ignored in that period? Did you feel like you were ignoring yourself? Did you feel like I was ignoring you? Were there, like, what were you feeling as we went through this period of GPS recalculation?
Not so much during that time, because we were still doing things for our immediate family, like, moving Tanner into the townhome and me decorating the townhome. And so, no, that didn't. When I did feel that way, though, was when we were driving home one of the nights, Saturday. We've been down there every single day. But one of the nights when we were alone and driving home, and I said, what are we going to do this week for an episode? And you just said, I don't think we should do one. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
That because I didn't forget, but yes, I was a little resentful that you had to turn right around and go back to Austin to deal with stuff for your mom's house that still hasn't been dealt with. That trip has been planned for a while, but the other things that got thrown at us
Yeah.
weren't in there in that planning. So at that moment, yes, I was like, no, this is not fair to me
Yeah.
because I'm trying to get back on track with what our goals are, and you wanted to postpone it for another week, and so I was like, no.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. I felt that, and I let you know, and I said, there's got to be a way that we can figure this out, and we did.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it may not be high quality, but we did. So
Yeah. And go back to, I'm going to actually, you didn't ask me, but I'm going to talk about how I felt as well. But go back to the origins of why we did the loud quiet. It was to help us stay connected. Right. And so, in a way, it was a way to stay connected in the empty nest. This was a way to stay connected in the midst of chaos, schedule chaos, emotional chaos, losing one's schedule, and then losing one's sense of self. This is probably the deepest conversation you and I have had about us or life in the last 3 weeks, right? And so
oh, for
this is
sure.
right,
Yeah.
right. And so it's fitting that goal. I will say, and yeah, we even tried. We're like, okay, we'll record Sunday night. Well, guess what? No, we spent time with your family, and I'm so glad they came down to the townhome and did all that. That was fun. I enjoyed that. Chad's in town and everything
That
else.
yeah, that was another thing that wasn't on my schedule, but my brother wanted to surprise his wife and my parents. So I am the secret keeper, and I that was then the transportation to and from the airport. So glad that it happened, but again, something that wasn't necessarily on my schedule that got added into it. But yes, a good thing.
Yeah,
But
it's a good thing, and no different than like trying to get back and see him. I was hoping to be back there for the surprise. I had to leave Tanner in the midst of the handyman down at the townhome. So all of it kind of swirls together. I will say that while you were in the midst of feeling like, no, Rick, you need to pay attention to this here, and you were never aggressive like that. I don't mean to say that, but in your mind, you were wanting us to pay attention to the office. You wanted us to pay attention to the things that are the building blocks of what the normalcy of life is for us. I was actually feeling a little bit annoyed. That's too strong of a word. I was feeling pulled, tension, not like anger tension, but just I felt tension in the sense that no, I'm really trying to plow through Austin. I'm trying to get through this so this is the last time I will ever have to deal with the stuff of the estate. And having conversations around other things back home created that kind of tension in me of switching back and forth when I was hoping to just have a straight focus on that. And what's interesting is now that we set a time, we said we're going to do this, we're going to do it at 4 o'clock. It feels good. Like I've been able to put that to bed. I will feel the tension back again when I realize how much more we still have to get through. But it feels good to have this moment. It's a light. It's a sign of that rediscovery of self. Because if this is really the self that you and I believe that we are, and I think we do believe that this the loud quiet and things working together and being in business together is ourselves. Well, this is getting back to that sense of self. Whereas in my mind, I had said on Friday is when I will begin that journey back. You have been instrumental in helping begin that journey back for us days ahead of that moment.
yeah, and I do. We have to get back not just to the business side of things, but to just our relationship too, because yeah, it's just been
Yeah,
on the back burner for the past, you know, well, basically probably since we got back from Germany,
that's what I was going to say. Is the
because
moment we got back from
because
Germany, it was all about other things, things that are not
yes,
bad,
because
but
yeah,
they weren't
no,
necessarily us things, and that's
right,
selfish. But that's what a couple kind of can be. If we want to stay
no,
a couple in
because
the empty nest, we need to be
yeah,
selfish and protective of the us.
this could be a very slippery slope, I mean, just like yesterday when you were like, I'll call you when I'm get in the car. And I texted you and I was like,
Are we talking?
are we gonna talk? And you said, oh, I forgot. I was like, oh, thank you. That makes me feel
Oh,
so
it
good.
had to make you feel like absolute crap. I also know what was going on my end, that there was no malintent. It wasn't that I thought of you less. It was traffic was hell, and I was surprised and distracted by that traffic as hell while I was trying to get somewhere, and I forgot to hit the call button, and then just got in the midst of traffic. So,
And
but it
I, and
doesn't
I,
matter that my
no.
intent wasn't a negative intent. It was your experience of that that helps continue that creation of the loss of self, the
And
loss of us
I,
self.
yeah, and I realize that we've been married now long enough that I know that's not your nature. And maybe 15 years ago it would have made me more upset. I wasn't upset. Really, I wasn't upset because all I wanted to do is get to this week so that I could get back into my routine a little bit. It didn't bother me because I was like, I just don't care. Like, and that's sad.
Is that
But I
bad?
was like,
No, I don't
but
think
I
that's
just
good.
I needed a break this week. Not from you, just from, and not really from everything or just, I just needed a little break from the chaos. And I have gotten that to some degree. And I know, well, you are getting to do some fun things while you're
I'm
there
getting to
too.
do some
So,
fun things. That's something, though, that I'm starting to realize. This could be a whole spin off conversation in the sense that fun isn't necessarily a chaos reliever. Fun is fun. The hockey game was a blast last night. That was really fun. But I've come to the realization that the only actual sort of quiet, silent times that I've had are the run that I had this morning, the drive over here to the house where we're recording, and the drive from the airport at the beginning. It's just been go. And so I think that there's kind of an empty nest lesson in here. There's such freedom to do all the things in the empty nest, and I think a lot of why we were willing to schedule a townhome move and an office move and other things all in this tight woven period because we've got the flexibility of the empty nest. I think there's also the realization that that flexibility can almost be abused, and if it's abused, then it becomes this kind of sense of chaos. Realizing full well there was a particular trigger that can't be scheduled, and yet we filled that cup so full that I think that put us in that precarious situation of now wondering, oh my gosh, who am I anymore, kind of thing.
yeah. Yeah, I think this time period, we have had chaotic times in the empty nest. This one was the most chaotic I think we've experienced, and I think it like you said, it kind of taught us that, you know, well, one thing I know it taught me, I'm not 25 or 30. Going up a three flights of stairs to move things, or I mean, we didn't move stuff, but I was putting together things and taking sheets and towels and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it just reinforced that emptiness doesn't equal tons of energy
We
and
have
being
the
able to do
freedom
things without,
Yeah.
yeah,
We have the freedom and
being
the
sore.
appetite to do the things that we could do when we were younger. We don't necessarily have the bodies
Yeah.
that we had. You and I are
Yeah.
still pretty active and still pretty spry. We're actually pretty
Well,
darn good for
sure.
who we are, but your body still tells you certain things like, yeah, you're not 20.
No, we were whipped. I mean, we were whipped every night.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't get home till 10 o'clock almost
Yeah.
every night, and then it was just falling into bed.
Yeah. We were coming back drained, and that's what this period's been, sort of draining. And I know that there are those of you out there, our listeners, our viewers, you've experienced this too. We hope that by sharing this story, just kind of opening ourselves up, because the loud, quiet, empty nest living is exactly that. It's living the empty nest. It's not just the highlights. And so hopefully this has resonated with some of you, or for those of you that have gone through those moments of losing yourself or getting into that schedule chaos. If you have a story to tell, if you've got wisdom to share, we would love to learn from you. I think the wider empty nest community would love to hear that story, to learn from you as well. So would you share that story on the loud, quiet, empty nest living, or shoot us an email and let us know what that story is. We can continue to learn from this wider community of those of us that are experiencing the empty nest life. And that's what this is. It's another part of life. It's another episode of the loud, quiet, empty nest living.